Circe, the Grace of the Witch. Odysseus and his men next land on the island of Aeolus, the Wind King, and stay with him a month. To extend his hospitality, Aeolus gives Odysseus two parting gifts, a fair west wind blowing the ships towards Ithaca, and a great bag holding all the unfavorable stormy winds. Within sight of home, and while Odysseus is sleeping, the men open the bag, thinking it contains gold and silver. The bad winds thus escape and blow the ships back to Aeolus' island. The king refuses to help them again, believing now that their voyage has been cursed by the gods. So if you watched that movie clip I posted last Friday of the Cyclops, this is the story I included after it. It's pretty accurate in the movie. They just don't return back to the Wind King's island after they're blown away from Ithaca. Okay. The next stop on their journey, the discouraged mariners next stop briefly in the land of the Laestrygonians, fierce cannibals who bombard their ship with boulders. Only Odysseus, his ship, and its crew of 45 survived the shower of boulders. So if you remember, he started with 200 men. We estimated that he lost about 60 when the Ciconians attacked them in Ismarus, their first stop, and they lost 6 men to the Cyclops. So now they are only down to 45 people and 1 ship. The lone ship then sails to Aea, home of the goddess Circe, considered by many to be a witch. There, Odysseus divides his men into 2 groups. Eurylochus leads 1 platoon to explore the island, while Odysseus stays behind on the ship with the remaining crew. In the wild wood, they found an open glade around a smooth stone house, the hall of Circe, and wolves and mountain lions lay there, mild in her soft spell, fed on her evil drug of evil. None would attack. Oh, it was strange, I tell you, but the switching their long tails, they faced our men like hounds or dogs who look up when their master comes with tidbits for them, as he will, from the table. Humbly, those wolves and lions with mighty paws fawned on our men who met their yellow eyes and feared them. In the entranceway, they stayed to listen there. Inside her quiet house, they heard the goddess Circe. Low she sang in her beguiling voice, while on her loom she wove ambrosial fabric sheer and bright by that craft known to the goddess of heaven. No one would speak until Polites, most faithful and likable of my officers, said, here's a picture too of Circe with her animals. Dear friends, no need for stealth. Here's a young weaver singing a pretty song to set the air a-tingle on these lawns and paven courts. Goddess she is, or lady, shall we greet her? So reassured, they all cried together, and she came swiftly to the shining doors to call them in, all but Eurylochus, who feared a snare or a trap. The innocent men went after her. On thrones, she seated them in lounging chairs while she prepared a meal of cheese and barley and amber honey mixed with Pramnian wine, adding her own vile pinch to make them lose desire or thought of our dear fatherland, kind of like the lotus flower. Scarcely had they drunk when she flew after them with her long stick and shut them in a pigsty. Bodies, voices, heads, and bristles, all swinish now, though minds were still unchanged. So squealing, in they went, and Circe tossed them acorns, mast, and cornel berries, fodder for hogs who rut and slumber on the earth. Okay, so here's a picture. You can see Eurylochus is the human still in the picture, and then Circe is transforming the men into pigs. Down to the ship, Eurylochus came running to cry alarm. Foul magic doomed his men. But working with dry lips to speak a word, he could not, being so shaken. Blinding tears welled in his eyes. Foreboding filled his heart. When we were frantic, questioning him, at last we heard the tale. Our friends were gone. Eurylochus tells Odysseus what happened and begs his captain to sail away from Circe's island. Against Eurylochus's advice, however, Odysseus rushes to save his men from the enchantress. On the way, he meets the god Hermes, who gives him a magical plant called Mali to protect him from Circe's power. Still, Hermes warns that Odysseus must make the goddess swear that she will play no witch's tricks. Armed with the Mali and Hermes' warning, Odysseus arrives at Circe's palace. Circe welcomes him and leads him to a magnificent silver-studded chair. The lady Circe mixed me a golden cup of honeyed wine, adding in mischief her unholy drug. I drank, and the drink failed. But she came forward, aiming a stroke with her long stick, and whispered, "Down in the sty, and snore among the rest." Without a word, I drew my sharpened sword, and in one bound, I held it against her throat. She cried out, then slid under to take my knees, catching her breath to stay in her distress. "What champion of what country can you be? Where are your kinsmen in your city? Are you not sluggish with my wine? Ah, wonder, never a mortal man that drank this cup, but when it passed his lips, he had succumbed. Hail must your heart be, and your tempered will. Odysseus, then you are, O great contender, of whom the glittering god with golden wand, Hermes, spoke to me ever and foretold the black swift ship would carry you from Troy. Put your weapon in the sheath. We two shall mingle and make love upon our bed, so mutual trust may come of play and love." To this I said, "Circe, am I a boy that you should make me soft and doting now? Here in this house you turned my men to swine. Now it is I myself you hold, enticing into your chamber, to your dangerous bed, to take my manhood when you have me stripped. I mount no bed of love with you upon it. Or swear me first a great oath. If I do, you'll work no more enchantment to my harm." She swore at once, outright, as I demanded, and after she had sworn and bound herself, I entered Circe's flawless bed of love. Circe's maidens bathe Odysseus and offer him a tempting meal, yet his mind remains on his captive men. Circe regarded me as there I sat, disconsolate, and never touched a crust. Then she stood over me and chided me. "Why sit at the table mute, Odysseus? Are you mistrustful of my bread and drink? Can it be treachery that you fear again after the god's great oath I swore for you?" I turned to her at once and said, "Circe, where is the captain who could bear to touch this banquet in my place? A decent man would see his men before him first. Put heart in me to eat and drink you may by freeing my companions. I must see them." But Circe had already turned away. Her long staff in her hand, she left the hall and opened up the sty. I saw her enter, driving those men turned to swine to stand before me. She stroked them, each in turn, with some new chrism, and then, behold, their bristles fell away, their coarse pelt, grown upon them by her drug, melted away, and they were men again, younger, more handsome, taller than before. Their eyes upon me, each one took my hands, and wild regret and longing pierced them through, so the room rang with sobs, and even Circe pitied that transformation. Exquisite, the goddess looked as she stood near me, saying, "Son of Laertes and the gods of old, Odysseus, master mariner and soldier, go to the sea beach and the sea-breasting ship, drag it ashore full length upon the land, stow gear and stores in rock holes under cover. Return, be quick, bring all your dear companions." So, being a man, I could not help consenting. So when I went down to the sea beach and the ship where I found all my other men on board weeping in despair along the benches. Sometimes in farmyards, when the cows return well fed from pasture to the barn, one sees the pens give way before calves in tumult breaking through to cluster about their mothers, bumping together, bawling. Just that way, my crew poured round me when they saw me come, their faces wet with tears, as if they saw their homeland in the crags of Ithaca, even the very town where they were born. Okay, so pause for a second. That whole part might be kind of confusing with the cows in the pasture, but it's an epic or an extended simile where he's comparing how, like, calves or baby cows will run frantically to see their mothers come back from grazing, like, really ecstatic that because they didn't know when they would see their mothers again. And that's kind of how he's comparing the other men who were left on the ship. When Odysseus returns, they ran to him, ecstatic that he was alive and that the other men are still alive. And weeping still, they all cried out in greeting. Prince, what joy is this, your safe return! Now Ithaca seems here, and we in Ithaca. But tell us now, what death befell our friends? Sorry, it's just Odysseus here. And speaking gently, I replied, first, we must get the ship high on the shingle and stow our gear and the stores in the clefts of rock for cover. Then come follow me to see your shipmates in the magic house of Circe, eating and drinking, endlessly regaled. They turned back as I commanded to do this work. Only one lagged and tried to hold the others. Eurylochus it was who blurted out, where now, poor remnants? Is it the devil's work you long for? Will you go to Circe's hall? Swine, wolves, and lions she will make of us all, beasts in her courtyard, bound up by her enchantment. Remember those the Cyclops held? Remember shipmates who made that visit with Odysseus, the daring man? They died for his foolishness. When I heard this, I had in mind to draw the blade that swung against my side and chop him, bowling his head upon the ground, kinsman or no kinsman, close to me though he was. But the others came between, saying to stop me, Prince, we can leave him if you say the word. Let him stay here on guard. As for ourselves, show us the way to Circe's magic hall. So all turned inland, leaving shore and ship, and Eurylochus, he too, came on behind, fearing the rough edge of my tongue. Meanwhile, at Circe's hands, the rest were gently bathed, anointed with sweet oil, and dressed afresh in tunics and new cloaks with fleecy linings. We found them all at supper when we came, but greeting their old friends once more, the crew could not hold back their tears, and now again the room rang with sobs. Then Circe, loveliest of all immortals, came to counsel me. Son of Laertes and god of old, Odysseus, master mariner and soldier, enough of weeping fits. I know, too, what you endured upon the human sea, what odds you met on land from hostile men. Remain with me and share my meat and wine. Restore behind your ribs those gallant hearts that served you in the old days when you sailed from stony Ithaca. Now parched and spent, your cruel wandering is all you think of, never of joy after so many blows. As we were men, we could not help consenting. So day by day we lingered, feasting long on roast and wine until a year grew fat. But when the passing months and wheeling seasons brought the long summery days, the pause of summer, my shipmates one day summoned me and said, Captain, shake off this trance and think of home, if home indeed awaits us, if we shall ever see your own well-timbered hall on Ithaca. They made me feel a pang, and I agreed. That day, all day long, from dawn to sundown, we feasted on roast meat and ruddy wine, and after sunset, when the dusk came on, my men slept in the shadowy hall, but I went through the dark to Circe's flawless bed, and took the goddess's knees in supplication, urging as she bent to hear, O Circe, now you must keep your promise. It is time. Help me make sail for home. Day after day, my longing quickens, and my company gives me no peace, but wear my heart away, pleading when you are not at hand to hear. The loveliest of the goddesses replied, Son of Laertes and the gods of old, Odysseus, master mariner and soldier, you shall not stay here longer against your will, but home you may not but home you may not go unless you take a strange way round and come to the cold homes of death and pale Persephone. You shall hear a prophecy from the rapt shade of the blind Tiresias of Thebes, forever changed with reason even among the dead. To him alone of all the flitting ghosts, Persephone has given a mind undarkened. So let's look at this, because that part was kind of confusing. Look at this summary on the right. Circe tells Odysseus that he must go to the underworld, to the land of the dead. The god of the underworld is Hades, referred to here as death. Persephone is his wife. One of the spirits or shade in the underworld is that of Tiresias, a blind prophet who has been allowed to keep his mental powers. He will give Odysseus instructions about returning home. At this, I felt a weight like stone within me, and moaning pressed my length against the bed with no desire to see the daylight more.